All right, it is a wild whopper of a Wednesday show here. It's almost like a Friday, and on top of it, we have a special guest in studio. I'm joined by my buddy and radio and television personality Frank Morano, and we celebrate Nico Romano, our steadfast senior producer's final day at the Liquid Lunch Studios as he moves on to greener pastures.
Now, when did we go from him officially calling himself senior producer to the show calling him senior producer?
He granted himself the title.
Okay.
And being I knew he was leaving, there's no reason to knock him down.
Exactly.
And it worked on his resume for him.
Yeah, hey.
So we can do that kind of stuff here. But on to more serious stuff. I'm glad Frankie's with me because he's a great judge of these things and been part of a lot of grassroots movements. We're joined right now by Kevin Freeman. He's a member of Every Legal Vote. And Kevin, you and a formidable group of citizens joined forces to create an urgently needed platform, everylegalvote.com. And I guess you're saying it's designed, to meet the 75 million people who think Donald Trump won and want to get to the bottom of this fraud. Tell us a little bit about Every Legal Vote.
Yeah, John, I appreciate the opportunity. Everylegalvote.com was started as a citizen movement. In my background, I'm the host of Economic War Room with Kevin Freeman, but we have a whole host of data experts, hackers, and so forth that have come together that have demonstrated that they don't believe that the election was counted fairly, and they want to get to the bottom of it. And this is a portal that allows people to communicate, gain information, share information, report their stories, and then take action. It's filling the gap that Twitter and Facebook and all the social medias, when they shut off any discussion and put the little disclaimer at the bottom of it, people have come to our site. We've been out 2 weeks, and we've had over 2 million unique visitors and 2 million actions taken from individuals demanding that the state legislators look at the evidence of fraud. We teach people what fraud is, and we tell them what they can do about it.
So, Frankie, one of the things Kevin's talking about is, they are a resource center there for people if they saw voter fraud or if they know of anything. Is it a little too late for that stuff?
Well, look, as Yogi would say, it's getting late early, right? We only have a few more weeks here, and a lot of the key states have certified. So I wonder if it is too late. I'd be curious as to what Kevin thinks is the practical road to counting every legal vote, and if the legal votes happen to be in Donald Trump's favor, getting him elected.
Well, look, if we don't address this right now, here and now, a lot of Republicans say we have a firewall in Georgia. Let me tell you, the Georgia accounting systems, the way that they operated their election, it is not credible. It wasn't credible before they did it. They were warned about this. HBO, Kill Chain, did a documentary, and they demonstrated that the systems that they were implementing not only weren't clean, but then even if they tried to do a recount, once tainted, they couldn't do a fair recount. And HBO Kill Chain was not a partisan pro-Donald Trump documentary. It is a documentary made by Harry Hursty with hackers and everybody else looking at it, and they said this system is flawed. We want to point out the flawed system because if we go down the road of Venezuela, where they had a flawed system that was implemented, we go from prosperous nation to bankruptcy and starvation in a very short period of time. We cannot let tainted systems operate and control our democracy. And that's part of what Every Legal Vote does. We stand up for people having their vote counted properly. We want a clean system. It doesn't matter whether it's too late or not for President Trump, and I don't think it is too late, by the way. I believe that when a fair court looks at the evidence that we've compiled and the statistical evidence, the evidence of the taint in the system, plus the thousands of reports that we're getting, they will conclude that this is not a fair election. And I bet Vice President Biden, who calls himself president-elect, I bet he would want to have a completely clean election here because otherwise there'll be a cloud hanging over his presidency for 4 years.
I understand all that, and I'm with you. And we gotta ask the real and hard questions. Have you guys at Every Legal Vote come across any material systemic voter fraud that could have a consequential effect on the election?
What we have come across is if you take the Kill Chain documentary or a PBS special or a New York Times documentary or Michigan professor or Princeton professor or Denver Post, all of these people who said before the election, these are the things that will happen if you see this system. We saw every one of those things happen. And then we have massive individual citizen journalist reports of, I saw this happen in my precinct. I saw this happen at my location. Thousands of them coming in, and they're still coming in. People learn about the website, and they're still reporting it. So yes, absolutely. We've seen enormous amounts of evidence. Now, a judge will have to look at it, and they really need to get a hold of the systems that were used and look at the logs, because you'll find some of this in the logs if it hasn't been scrubbed. But there's a lot of data, a lot of information that says this thing has not been counted fairly. And when you look and you see that there are like 5 or 6 locations, all Democrat-controlled cities, where you see an anomaly where all of a sudden there are all these Biden-only votes and they're only in these specific cities, and you see these spikes that happen at certain times. You don't see that in other urban areas. You only see it in the critical city, in the swing state. That is suggestive that there was massive fraud that took place. So when Sidney Powell says Donald Trump won in a landslide, there is evidence to back that claim up.
So, Kevin, how do you explain then the state of Georgia, where there's a Republican governor who's a staunch ally of the president and a Republican secretary of state who supervises elections? I mean, how could there have been this kind of pervasive fraud in Georgia, where the election apparatus is controlled by allies of the president?
Well, first off, the election apparatus is not completely controlled, because you have local control of a lot of this that would take place in Atlanta, number one. Number two, you have the reality that these systems are tainted. Both sides admitted it before we went in. And this isn't something new that we've looked at. Economic War Room has done videos, economicwarroom.com/myvote. We did interviews with experts on the systems 2 years ago that demonstrated this sort of thing could happen. And then you go back to Kill Chain, and they said, look, once it's tainted, it doesn't matter how many times you recount it or look at it. Once it's tainted, it's polluted, and it will remain tainted. And my last answer is not a palatable one. It's one that Republicans do not like. But I'm telling you, I believe that this system has been implemented and used not just to benefit Biden this time, but I believe that there are certain Republicans out there who've used this system for their own election fraud. And that's why every legal vote is bipartisan. So I'm not going to question the governor. I'm not going to question the Secretary of State. But I think that there are legitimate questions that can be asked along those lines.
Do you have any evidence that supports Sidney Powell's claim on Newsmax last Saturday, where she suggested that Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, might have been on the receiving end of essentially a bribe in order to allow these Dominion voting machines to be in place in Georgia?
I don't know what the basis for evidence is. I have not seen it. I do know Sidney Powell. I've known her for years. I was one of the first people to buy her book, License to Lie. That woman has number one of the sharpest legal minds I've ever met. Number two, she has a titanium backbone. She is solid. And she's not afraid of bringing out the truth regardless of where the chips land. And number three, she was proven 100% right in the Michael Flynn case. 100% right. And when she says she has something, I believe she has something. So I would look very carefully at any claim she makes.
I feel the same as you. Kevin Freeman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Encourage my audience to go out there and look very carefully at everylegalvote.com. And if you saw something, say something. Now's the time to speak up. Kevin, thank you very much. Good luck to you guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do some news of the day. Frank will make some more of my Stop the Steal audience get sick and ruin their Thanksgiving by telling them that it's over again. But we got to give you the cold, hard truth.
I'm not telling them that it's over.
Quick break.
The voters are.